thought long and hard before answering this question. And if I'm being strictly honest, my favourite advertising campaign of all time is probably something like A Diamond Is Forever. Um, Conceivably, it might be We're Number Two, so we try harder, which I think is the most ingenious case of reframing a thought, by which I mean in virtually every aspect. Being number two is a disadvantage. It means you have fewer cars, fewer outlets, there's less chance that you get the car you want when you land at an obscure airport. And so long as everybody's attention is focused on those things, being number two is a disadvantage. But advertising has the magical property of what I call alchemy, of turning lead into gold. Because by simply changing the thing to which the consumer pays attention, you can turn a weakness into a strength. And so I suppose I have to include We're Number Two, so we try harder in my pantheon of great advertising. But then I thought, everybody knows those, so what's the point? Okay? And I decided to choose an ad which was obviously the beginning of a campaign, and it went nowhere. And I think that happens quite a lot, by the way. Every now and then you get a brilliant campaign idea, and for circumstances entirely beyond our control, certainly nothing to do with the excellence of the idea, or indeed its effectiveness even. There's a change in client, the budget gets cut. There are about 6 things that can kill any great ad campaign. A new creative director comes in who wants to stick his own oar in, that kind of stuff. And this was a campaign for Gordon's Gin, which must have been part of Diageo then as now, and it's probably 15 years old. And it focused on the fact, which we behavioural scientists would call the jack of all trades heuristic, the idea that perfection is usually achieved as a product of focus, which is a strong heuristic belief. And it was simply a campaign for Gordon's Gin, which used the line, "You can only be good at one thing." And it made the point extremely eloquently that Gordons have, for about 200 years, only ever done one thing. They've made gin. That's it. End of story. They haven't extended into a weird line of flavoured vodkas, anything of that kind. Although technically gin is a flavoured vodka, but I'll pass that for a second. They haven't gone into alco pops. They haven't gone into anything strange. They haven't gone into tonics even, which would be a kind of natural brand extension, you might think. And the only ad I ever saw in the campaign featured a kind of oblique celebrity campaign. And this was Jeff Capes' Butterfly Collection. Now, most people won't know who Jeff Capes was. He was a massive burly guy who was a kind of British Olympian, famous shot putter. He was an enormous, hunky, great guy. And, of course, Jeff Capes' Butterfly Collection, unlike his shot putting, was absolutely appalling. There were butterflies with their wings off, the pins were all bent, the board was all distorted. And it struck me that this was the genesis of what was going to be an absolutely glorious campaign, taking celebrities who are famous for one thing and showing what they're crap at, which is almost everything else. And it never went anywhere. It never happened. It disappeared without trace. Tragedy. The other campaign which I think achieved a little more staying power was that glorious one for a beer which simply showed celebrities' garbage contents. And so you had the joy, like a kind of second-rate stalker, of going through a celebrity's garbage and seeing what they'd thrown out, which included lots and lots of interesting and telling and amusing items, including a few empty bottles or cans of the beer in question. And that struck me like Jeff Capes' Butterfly Collection, of advertising at its best, because it took an absolutely conventional format, which is the celebrity endorsement, but it did it in a completely oblique and unexpected way. And so those are the 2 I'm going to put forward, not because they're strictly speaking my favourite campaigns of all time. I think they're just the most undeservedly unsuccessful. Thank you very much.